Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Life You Crave podcast. Today on the show, I have the opportunity to interview Michelle Campbell, who was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, and began her educational journey in South Dakota before relocating to Atlanta, Georgia to continue her studies. During her academic pursuits, she launched a real estate investment firm, marking the beginning of her entrepreneurial path. Over the years, Michelle expanded her ventures into various industries, including horticulture, where she founded an interior scape company, and logistics, where she established a commercial trucking business. What? Drawing on the insights and expertise gained across these diverse fields, she transitioned into a career in the financial services industry. Michelle is also the author of Bluebird, a memoir that candidly explores themes of trauma, heartbreak, and the resilience found in life struggles. She's also the founder of a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering individuals through financial literacy and fostering economic stability. And like We Need More, she also enjoys traveling, cooking, exploring diverse cuisines, organizing, dancing, including spa treatments, and spending quality time with her cherished Pomeranian. So first question is, do you sleep? Like, does sleep, are you like Martha Stewart, you only need 4 hours? Like, how have you done all of this, Michelle?
Man, I don't know, by a hope and a prayer, because no, I don't sleep, but it's not because I don't want to. I always joke and say that, the universe knows that if I were able to actually sleep for 7 or 8 hours, I would be super dangerous.
Right?
I have some kind of sleep issue that I can't sleep. So I'm doing
So
all
you're just going.
half asleep and out of boredom and just inspiration.
Yes. Okay. Yes. You are a very driven woman. And I am so excited to have you on the show today because before we hit record, Michelle and I were kind of talking about her experience in her life and how it led her to be a financial expert and the parallels of self-image and how her own self-image actually was creating the debt that you had created in your life, right? And that is parallel to the theme that I talk about, which is overeating and carrying unwanted weight. So much of that is because of maybe not the debt that we've created, although that can certainly happen, but it's like a deficit in our own lives, a deficit of pleasure. It's a real disappointment with how our lives have turned out, even though most of the time we willingly created these lives for ourselves. So I cannot wait to talk about those parallels. But first, before we dive in, Michelle, if the listener right now hangs on for this entire interview today, how could their lives potentially change? What is it that you're going to share with people today that you really, really need them to hear?
So I really want every listener, every reader of Bluebird to first just know, because I'm telling you that you're at where you're supposed to be right now at this moment, no matter what you're going through, no matter what it looks like. Everything in life is purposed and everything happens on a seasonal basis and at the right time. And it's not until you learn the lesson behind what you're going through that phase will end, and then you'll have something else, but at least you won't keep going through that. So if you're in this cycle of debt, if you're in this cycle of yo-yo dieting and up and down weight, if you're in this cycle of just bad relationship after bad relationship, whatever it is, there's a lesson buried underneath it that you have not figured out yet. And it all comes down to being with yourself and taking those moments from mindfulness, whether you use it to journal or just daydream or talk to a therapist, but being with yourself and not being in what they call the rat race of life will help you get the understanding needed to move to your next level. So you're where you're supposed to be. And, the assumption that I'm not where I want to be, none of us are. And the
Right.
assumption that, I'm behind, No,
Yeah.
you're not. You're at where you're supposed to be at this moment, and you're not alone. It's just that we're not talking about these things. We are talking about everything else on the surface, but we're not talking about what we're honestly going through. And so I am one of the most present day transparent people that you will ever meet
Mhm.
because I want to show you my flaws so that you don't feel alone.
Yeah. And you shared with me that that is exactly what you did. You published, what did you say, 21 years of journal entries?
Right. I put 21 years of journal entries in a book, like just putting all my stuff out there.
What did that do for you? Like, how did that change you?
I mean, I'm still feeling the change, and it is just wonderful because when I think back over the 21 years that I wrote about, these are all the things that I mean, I was so embarrassed and ashamed of and
Wow.
depressed over. And I didn't want anybody to know, I wasn't being true to myself in any kind of relationship because there were these things that even those people that were supposed to be close to me and love me, I wasn't talking to them about. And so
Yeah.
with having the courage to put it all out there, it just freed me to almost feel like I remember when I was going through everything and how I felt so alone. And then that caused depression. And we're not talking about it. So it's all bottled
Right.
up and there's no way to expend it. But putting it out there just let me know, like, look, I was not the only person going through these things. It's just that
Right.
people aren't being honest and talking about them. So why don't I
Yes.
trend of let's not be embarrassed because that embarrassment, that shame, all of that, somebody else gave you that emotion. We don't honestly feel
Mhm.
those things about ourselves. We heard it somewhere. Like you should
Mhm.
be ashamed because you have a 500 credit score, and you should be ashamed because you're in debt, and you should be ashamed because you're overweight. But no, somebody else gave you that idea,
Right.
and that's where
Yeah.
you're feeling that from. So,
Yeah.
and honesty, it's almost like that's why therapy and people that believe in therapy, why it's so valuable is because actually just voicing it
Yes.
gets it out of your head, out of your spirit, and it just frees you. It's like it makes
Yes.
it okay.
So I am actually very much drawn to you specifically in this moment because you are a financial expert. And I feel like the one area with there's two areas with so much shame, but it is 100% it is your money and it is your body weight food stuff. Like this is like shame central and we
Mhm.
hide. And I know for me, for a long time, like I didn't feel like I was ready for a financial advisor, or I didn't feel like I had made good choices with money. So I didn't really want to like air my dirty laundry to an expert. Like that's the worst, right? So tell us a little bit about how you got into this place. I mean, you were literally you've done a million things. You're a writer and you have a nonprofit and you established a commercial trucking business. I mean, the scope of what you have done in your life is great. What led you to this place? How did you land here? And why are you still here and not necessarily moving to something else?
Sure. So in Bluebird, I talk about what's the most shocking thing that I say is I lay it out and I'm like 5 evictions, 4 repossessions, 3 bankruptcies, 2 abortions, a sexual assault, and $500,000 in debt. That was my mess that
Oh,
I like
wow.
hid from the world.
Yes.
And the day of my fourth repossession, I was like, okay, this has got to stop. Why is this happening to me? Because we're all reckless with money in our 20s. And I was,
Sure.
flying to New York getting $2,000 weaves that I could afford, but I couldn't afford.
Right, exactly.
And so fast forward, and I was about to turn 40 soon, like within a couple of years, and I was like, this has got to stop. Why do I keep ending up in this constant cycle of debt when I'm not being reckless anymore? I was on a strict budget, and I knew all the tools that you're supposed to know. I knew how to budget. I knew how to change companies because of a higher interest rate. I knew how to negotiate bills down. I knew all of these things, and so it didn't make sense. And
Mhm.
so I sat down and I was like, I have to figure this out. And I had been on this on again, off again spiritual journey. But at that time, for like the previous 2 years to that, I was just dedicated spiritually because I was like, I need to find out what the underlying thing is. I need to really connect to something. And before that, I had no self identity, no sense of self worth, nothing. So I didn't even know who I was. And so
Right.
I chose the spiritual route. So I immediately, after looking out the window like 5 times, is my car really gone? Is this a
That really
dream?
happened.
This is
Yeah.
and I immediately put myself on a 21-day spiritual foodless fast. And
Did you say foodless?
foodless, no food.
Okay, everybody, don't turn off the podcast just because she said foodless and you're like, yeah, right. There's no way I could ever do that. That's not where we're going. Don't worry.
Right.
Wow. So
And
what was that like for you?
well, so that was a challenge in itself because
Yeah.
I was trying to fast for like months before that, and I couldn't even make it 24 hours.
Right.
But this felt like do or die for me. And this was just my way. It was the
Yeah.
only thing that I hadn't tried.
Yeah.
And so I did it to connect. I'm like, food is not the distraction. Television, social media, nothing's going to be the distraction. I couldn't go anywhere because I didn't have a car. So,
Right.
like spiritually, the universe grounded me for a reason so that I could get this. And over the first 13 days, I was just blown away. I first made a timeline to figure out how did I even get here? When did this start? And so I started from the first thing that I could remember of being in trouble financially. And I kept making a list. And then I went back and I attached emotions to each thing that happened on that timeline. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, this has been going on for 21 years. And I had this discovery over a 21-day fast. I'm not stopping the fast. I need to keep going. Like, this is juicy. I think that I'm about to have a breakthrough. By the last day, I had figured out that what it all came down to was my relationship with money. And my relationship with money started at the tender age of 4 years old when on my first day of preschool, I couldn't make a friend. And I'm this preschooler. No one wanted to sit by me. No one wanted to talk to me. A little girl told me I was ugly. I still know her name. 4. I don't remember a lot from being 4, but I was 4. And it never occurred to me over the years of all this low self-esteem and lack of self-worth and chasing whoever would listen to me for a sense of belonging and acceptance, that all the money that I was spending and going in debt over and overspending and maxing out credit cards and just making bad business decisions and bad money decisions all had to do with that little girl on the first day of preschool. And I was trying to buy relationships. I was trying to buy acceptance. I was trying to buy a sense of belonging. And when that clicked, it was like I went to sleep and then things just started reversing themselves and happening. Somehow I was able to get a brand new car. Mind you, this is my 4th repossession.
What?
I didn't even know what my credit score was. Who knows? Like, I think it was like 520 at that point.
Right.
So it was like, none of that was supposed to hurt me. It was supposed to bring me to my knees to get that so that I could pass that on, because that's the part that we're not talking about in financial literacy. We're talking about investing and retirement and buying stocks and crypto. And before you do all that, if you have 1 job, 2 jobs, 10 jobs, you're not going to ever be where you're supposed to be if you don't connect that personal element first, which is your relationship, how you view money, how you spend it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm like, where do I even start with this? So first is you created a timeline. Where'd you say you created a timeline and then you attached emotions to it? Can you share more about that? Because I'm imagining people are like, okay, I need to know more.
Sure. So when I thought back to the very, very first incident of, okay, how did I start this cycle of debt? It was my senior year in high school, and I was in a debutante ball. And, my whole life, I had really felt like I was the ugliest person in the world, like very, very low self-esteem. And I had nobody reversing that validation of myself. I had classmates telling me I was ugly. You have a huge nose and a big forehead, nerdy glasses, and you walk like a slut, and on and on and on. You talk like a white girl. Like, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And, my mom, she loved me, but she was so busy trying to make sure we didn't need anybody. She was a single parent. And so all she was working and going to school. And, she's thinking that I'm acting out when I'm actually, it was a cry for help. But, when telling her these things, and she's like, oh, they're just jealous. They're just jealous. And I'm thinking, jealous of what? Like, we don't have any more than they do. But so that was the very first thing that stood out. And so I actually got in trouble that year, right before the debutante ball, because I was trying to buy this sense of belonging. I wrote one too many bad checks, got arrested, got taken to the juvenile detention center.
Oh, wow.
And like the day of the debutante ball, somehow my mom got me out. I was only there 36 hours, but my mom got me out, and we walk in just in the nick of time of they're like introducing Michelle Campbell.
Wow.
That's where it started. I was trying to buy this sense of acceptance and belonging.
Yes.
And I wanted it
And
so
approval.
right. I wanted it so bad that I was willing to write this check. I didn't know I was going to go to jail and everything over it.
Right.
But luckily, I
Right.
was 17 and it wasn't a
Right.
huge deal, you know.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
still, that's where it started.
That's where it started. Why didn't it stop there?
Because it almost didn't click. Like my need for acceptance and belonging and that validation, regardless of, you know, what my grandparents tried to help with, my mom tried to help with, I needed it from my peers and from my community around me, and I was not getting it. And
Yeah.
so I didn't even connect that. It felt like fight or flight. Like
Yeah.
I felt like I
Right.
was fighting for my life.
Yeah. Like
It never ended.
you needed it to breathe.
Hmm.
So it became a pattern.
Hmm.
Did you see the pattern before
No,
that 4-3 possession,
no,
or you didn't see it? It was just like
no.
you're just kind of constantly in it, like a fish in water, like trying to
Right.
figure out how to get out, but always
Right.
end back up in the same place. I think that is so resonant for people. I know it is for me, like whether it's with food and dieting or if it's
Mhm.
with money and debt. It's
Right.
like I somehow always end up back here. And all of a sudden you're like, how am I this age? How have I been doing it this long? And I'm back here. And
Right.
I really appreciated when you said, like, you knew all the things, you knew better, but
Yeah.
yet somehow, and this is where I say my clients have a PhD in weight loss. Like they have done it all. They don't need any more information, right? But it's like, well, how come I can have all of this understanding and
Hmm.
still find myself in a hole,
Right.
you know? So you said it was really about connecting the emotions and really starting to investigate your relationship with money, which
Right.
is why I'm like, you and I are like sisters from another mister here, because I'm always talking about it's your relationship with food. It's who you're
Right.
being with food. It's
Right.
your identity, your self-image with food that actually needs the work. Now, I imagine just like with money, there are some practical components there, right? Like, no, we're not going to continue drinking these like 7-Eleven big gulps and eating big old bags of Cheetos and
Yeah.
expect our bodies to change.
Correct.
Just like I'm not going to be able to continue flying to New York and spending $2,000 on my hair and expect my finances to change, right? Like
Right.
certain things do have to change behaviorally. But I think what I hear you saying is the same thing I'm saying with food, which is, but you have to go to the root of it
Right.
before it actually ever will change in a sustainable way.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, once I started attaching the emotion, and the emotion was always the same, I'm thinking, where is this emotion coming from? You know, so then that took me back to where did this sense of lack of belonging and acceptance and bad self-esteem come from? When did that start?
Yeah.
And that's how I figured out it was that 4-year-old on the first day of preschool. And I
Yeah.
was just mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh, like all of my decisions have been because of her.
Yeah.
Then, you know, like her voice, what she didn't receive.
Yes.
And I'm just like, I mean, wouldn't it have been amazing if she could have been healed earlier in life to, I would have had another struggle. I mean, that's just
Right.
life. We're
Sure.
gonna have
Right.
we go
Right.
through things to help people around us.
Yes.
We go through things to help us to learn, to grow,
Yeah.
gain
Yeah.
wisdom, healing. But
Yeah.
so it was gonna be something else. But I felt like this, I know that I'm purposed to be doing what I'm doing. It was supposed to happen like that. It was supposed to happen in that timing. But everything pointed back to her. And so I always ask people, I have a blog, and I try to end it with action steps every week of
Yeah.
current day, present day transparency. So I talk about something real that I'm going through, because just because I got through all that doesn't mean that I don't still have crap going on, in my life.
Right.
And so I
Right.
talk about it so that I, one, want you to know that you're not alone. And two, you get to see the finished package.
Yeah.
You didn't see all the mess in between. Bluebird was written in the past. This was stuff that, I had been through, then grew and healed from it, and then moved on. And I have my life that I have now. But there's still stuff that goes
Yeah.
on. Not that stuff, but there's still new stuff. I
Right.
don't want you to be, under the impression that you don't have it together
That's right.
because of what you think my life looks like. And so
Right.
I'm always asking the question or encouraging people to connect the emotion to whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just do that little exercise. Really think about it, because I really believe that we all have had a major turning point event happen in our life that Actually, it was probably so traumatic that you don't think it was traumatic, but you shoved it under the rug. But it is who you are at your core. And the person that is afraid, and the person that feels challenged, and the person that gets their feelings hurt, and the person that becomes depressed, it's that person. And it could have been, in grade school, it could have been in adolescence, it could have been high school, college, it could have been in adulthood because of a divorce, it could have been because of a
Yeah.
death, but there's somewhere inside of you, and that's the person that is the root to all of your decisions. I mean, even food choices, like I am a health fanatic because of that 4-year-old.
Mm.
Because look, she wasn't accepted. She didn't have a sense of belonging. She was told she was ugly. So I refused to have a weight problem. I kill myself in the gym
Yeah.
and very
Yeah.
strict with the diet because of her. I'm thinking
Right.
because that's something that I can control. And
Right.
that's something that's the last thing that I want on my list. Not true for everybody, but for that 4-year-old, that's true.
Right. So when you say to really examine the emotion, what I was thinking in my head was I was thinking so many of our decisions, of my decisions, especially financially, have been rooted in fear and scarcity,
Mm,
right? So it's like a fear of scarcity. It's
mhm,
a fear of lack.
mhm.
It's a feeling of lack and this tremendous urge or survival instinct to not have the lack. And so whatever I got to do, whether it's a credit card or whether it's writing a bad check, like I got to do
Right,
that thing so that I don't experience lack, which seems like such a primal response, right? Like it's like
right,
we're
right,
hardwired to not have lack because
right,
lack equals death. But in our modern world, lack might feel like I don't have money to get my nails done. And so
right,
I'm going to be embarrassed if I go out there and my manicure looks all crappy.
right,
But that's obviously not real lack. So
right.
what do you do once you've like, okay, I see I'm making these decisions from a place of fear and scarcity and lack. And I could see how it actually stems from my childhood and financial trouble in my family, the whole thing. I can see it. What do you do then?
So once you know it, you're not going to forget it.
Mm.
And when I'm saying that, like, this is always going to be a part of my life, I have to constantly check myself. Christmas is coming up, for instance.
Mhm.
Okay, so I am asking myself this question as I'm making a list and choosing gifts for people. Do I really want to buy this person a gift? Is this necessary? Can I afford this level of gift? Should I
Mm.
get them something maybe cheaper? Am I getting them this gift because I don't feel the acceptance and belonging that I want from them? Or do I really want to show my love through something that I'm
Mm.
getting them? It's a
Yeah.
constant check that I have. I just had an out of town guest last week, and we're going all these places. I'm trying to show you my hometown. And am I spending this money to impress you?
Mm.
Am I spending this to feel more accepted by you? Or am
Yeah.
I really just trying to show you a good time? Am I going over budget to come off as I'm okay? Or
Yeah.
can I be vulnerable enough and tell you the truth? Like, let's eat fast food tonight because we had an expensive dinner last night. I
Right.
constantly have to check myself. So once you know the
Yeah.
emotion behind what it is, that's a constant check for you. And that
Yeah.
will put you in line to be able to get on the right path to becoming financially stable, which is part of being financially literate.
Yeah, so let's talk about financial literacy a little bit. And
Mm,
also I want to make sure that we pull in the connection with financial literacy, financial stability, and social justice. How
right.
do you tie all three of those things together?
So I feel like to be financially literate is everybody's foundation, everybody in the world. I don't care how much you make, what your nationality is, what your background is, what you do for a living, what your belief system is. There's those people that feel like if you want to make more money, then, you don't need all this millions of dollars. No matter what, everybody, our foundation is to be financially stable, which is part of financial literacy, because without that, you can't do anything
Right.
you know? And the first
Right.
thing that we don't talk about that it causes is mental health problems. I was severely depressed off and on. I wasn't necessarily even not depressed when I had money. I was,
Right. It didn't solve the problem.
I was equally depressed when I
Yes.
had money. I was
Yes.
equally depressed when I didn't have any money. Sometimes it was really worse than sometimes I was like in this euphoric stage, this not wanting to believe it. But, mental health is huge. And that is the root to all of our relationships, whether it's a business relationship, a personal relationship, your marriage, your kids, your family. If
Yes.
your mental health is off, your relationships are going to be off.
Yes.
And the root of that is all money. We all need money to survive, but that's why you have to get that part down first.
Yeah.
And so
That's true.
And so when I think about this circle of life, if you will, in financial literacy, you have to check yourself because everything starts with self. You came into this world alone, you're going to leave alone, and your money and your financial health is your responsibility. But you have to be responsibly healthy on your level. I'm not saying, everybody needs to go out there and make millions, and unless you do, and good for you. And, let's work on that. But still, when I'm talking about just basic financial health, it is that emotional health with how you view money. It is knowing your numbers. I call it knowing your numbers. What's your credit score? How much interest
Mhm.
are you paying on your mortgage? How much tax are you paying that maybe you need to talk to somebody because it's not just go and sit at the tax desk and these are your results. I mean, you do have control over what those results are. It is knowing all your interest rates on your credit cards, things like that, being on a budget. I don't care how much money you have. Even if you have millions, you need a budget because you need to realistically know what's coming in and what is your bottom line to go out, because then you'll know what's left and whether you want to invest it. Maybe you need to get out of debt, no matter what it is. That's why you need to know that number. You need to know
Mhm.
what's going on. It can't just be, out of sight, out of mind. But still at the root is the relationship, because I was someone that at one time had like 4 or 5 jobs. And so it did not make sense on paper. How am I making all this money? I'm on a budget. I'm being responsible, but I'm still broke. It just didn't make sense.
Right.
And it was
Well,
because my relationship with money was messed up.
yes. That is so fascinating because when you're talking and you're saying, like, oh, it was because my relationship was messed up. I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? I don't even get it. But then I think that's exactly what I tell people about food. And I totally get it, right? Because
Right.
everybody kind of has their thing. For example, my whole life, I was a chronic overeater. And like, I would say probably most of my clients are. And I was always trying to solve it with portion control, which
Right.
is a budget, right? And
Right.
it never, I mean, it might work for a minute,
Right.
but then it completely stops working because of emotions,
Right.
right? Because some emotions coming in, or it might actually stop working because of legit hunger. But the point is that it stops working. And it really came down to the reason I was eating in the first place.
Right.
And money and food are the same in that you can't abstain from either one of these things, right? So it's
Mm.
not like when we have a trouble with gambling or alcohol or drugs or something like that. I'm not saying, oh, just you can just abstain. I don't want to diminish how challenging any addiction is.
Right.
But with food and money, you can't just be like, I'm done. I'm never going to touch food again. I'm never going to touch money again, right? You can't just walk
Right.
away. You have to reconcile the relationship. You have to,
Right.
right? So what do you tell people? People who are like, okay, Michelle, I hear you. I'm
Mhm.
inspired, but like, what now? I just got to make this timeline and check out my emotions and everything will be fine. What do people do?
So first start with self, because like I said, typically when someone hears financial literacy, they're jumping over to, oh, I'm going to learn investment and, how to save for retirement and, all the technical, I call them technical tools and resources. None of that's relevant. Start with
Mhm.
self. And after you look yourself, in the mirror, whatever you got to do, and humble yourself to have the courage, just write down, you got to face it. Mine started with opening years and years of unopened mail. I'm talking about years
Mm,
of unopened mail because I knew that they were credit card statements that like I couldn't pay because I'm trying to survive. So if I
yeah.
have to take care of transportation and rent and utilities and food, I don't have time to pay a credit card that's already, been sent to
Maxed
a
out.
collection
Yeah,
agency,
collections.
because that's not going to keep me alive. And
Right.
they'd be like, "What's going to mess up your credit score?"
Yes.
So I opened up all my unopened mail. So whatever that looks like for you, it could be mail, it could be emails, it could be, just the fact that you haven't balanced your checkbook in years or months, but you have to stare whatever it is in the face. And that's how I figured out that over those 21 years that I had accumulated $500,000 worth of debt. And so this
Wow.
is like evictions, where they still expect you to pay the rent
Hey.
that you didn't
Yeah.
pay. This
Yeah.
is the repossessions where they still expect you to pay for the car for the time that you used it. This is credit cards, thousands of credit cards. This is loans that defaulted. You know, there was a student loan in there, like all of it. None of it, surprisingly, like housing or a purchase of a house or something like that.
Right.
But that's how I got to that number because I knew I had debt. I was in this constant cycle of debt, but I did not know my numbers. I didn't know how much debt. And so I had to stare that in the face and own it. You have to own it. After you own it, then get your credit report. Everybody gets a free credit report on annualcreditreport.com every year. There's no reason why you should not know where you stand with the credit agencies. And then make a budget. Nobody likes the B word, but you must have a budget. And there are so many out there, you know, there's left brain budgets, right brain budgets. I like the 50-30-20, which is 50% of your income should go to the things that you absolutely need. So that's housing, transportation, food, utilities, the things that you need. 30% actually go to the things that you want and you feel like you need. You know, that was where I was. I couldn't separate the two. Like I was like, no,
Yeah.
I have to get facials. What are you talking about? Like
Yeah.
I have to. This is very important.
Yes.
People are already telling me I'm ugly. The last thing I need is to have more breakouts.
Right. It feels
You know,
necessary.
right. It did to me.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
30% to wants. And then that 20% that's left, I recommend paying off debt if you have it first, starting with whatever is the highest interest rate. After you are debt free, then building that emergency fund. And after you have the emergency fund, then that 20% then goes towards investing, which you can grow.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on under earning? Right. So meaning people who maybe they can set up their budget, they have it, but maybe because of self-doubt or low self-esteem, they aren't earning what they should be earning. They aren't advocating for that promotion or starting that business or charging enough. And I think that we could make the argument that that's certainly linked to race and gender and social justice in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about under earning? Do you have clients who are under earning? How do you help people with that?
I was definitely an under earner, and I probably still am. One, because I just don't charge what I should charge. Because I work off of compassion. I mean, we all have bills, but I'm just like, I know that God's going to take care of me. So, you know, there are people that I know that I can help you, and it's not about getting paid.
Money.
It's not about it feedback, like it's going to come to me.
Yeah.
But what I did when I definitely knew I was an under earner first, I just went and got another job, right? Then job 3, then job 4. But that's why that didn't work, is because my relationship with money wasn't defined yet.
Because we make more and then we spend more.
Right. So
Right?
sometimes that too.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're under earning, it's because your relationship with money is not in check. And so you need to fix that part first. That's why the personal side of financial literacy is more important than what you're going to do when you start investing and how to grow your money and learning all the tips and tools.
Yeah.
That's why that's important. But I would say that you got to do your budget first to at least know where you are. And there are always ways to cut. I know that a lot of ways that I recommend, a lot of people don't want to do, but my mom taught me couponing at a very early age, and I still coupon and I love it. And, you know, what if you only had to do it for 3 or 6 months or a year to be in a more stable place? That's not a lot to ask for. Or what if you just had to cut your Starbucks down or take it all the way out? They just had at Starbucks on the 13th, their annual Red Cup Day, where you get like a reusable Starbucks cup.
Oh.
That boosts my self-esteem on a daily basis because I make my coffee at home, but I pour it in the red Starbucks cup to take with me. And I feel like, you know, I got Starbucks.
Yes, that's so smart because I actually prefer my coffee at home. I think it tastes better, you know, but I'm always like, but I want the cup and it's all warm. And, you know,
you just kind of look cool walking around with the Starbucks cups.
Right.
That was a way that I was able to save money. And another way, I'm like, look at the things that you're spending on that you really think are important and see what you can do without for a little while. And so for me, I used to always facials and nails and different things that I felt like I needed. Now I prioritize them to when are they most important instead of feeling like I have to have this all the time.
All the time.
So, right. So if I'm going to an event or I have something special or something like that, then yes, now is the appropriate time to go and get hair and makeup and mani-pedi and all of that stuff done. But it's really not that important if I'm trying to save money to get to my next financial stability level. I can
Right.
let this go for,
Right.
a few months or a
Right.
year to put all that money towards this monster of debt so that
Right.
then I can accumulate emergency savings and actually have an investment fund. And I mean, I feel like my goal, my personal goal is I know I will have made it and I'll be living my best life when I can live solely off of interest. That's
Yes.
my goal. So
Yeah.
I am always trying to pour as much money into the principal to let it grow so that one day it's not going to matter how much I make a day or a month or a year because I'm living off of interest.
See, I am so glad you said that because that was actually a question that I had for you, which was, I'm sure you've read The Psychology of Money. I don't
Mhm.
remember the author's name, but he makes the point that people suffer because it's never enough. You can make millions and
Mhm.
billions and it never feels like enough. And we hear that so
Mhm.
often. It never feels like
Mhm.
enough. And that's where the actual scarcity and fear and suffering take place. So I was going to
Mhm.
ask you, like, what is enough? But I think you just answered that. Enough is when I can live off of interest alone. And so therefore, I'm pouring it into principal.
Well, that's enough for me. But I always tell people also, what makes you happy on your level?
Mm,
Because I found that in the past, some of the things that I was doing and I was spending money on were to impress other people. It's not even things that were actually at a core level for me
mm,
important or made me happy and
yeah,
satisfied. All the
yeah,
way down to, I mean, I still have people make fun of me because expensive name brand clothes are nice, but that's not like my zhuzh. I
right.
don't, that's not where I like to spend money. There were times that I was spending money just so that I could have a certain brand,
Yeah,
almost to like keep up with somebody. And I'm
mhm,
thinking, now that just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what I did because
right.
my relationship was connected to acceptance and belonging. So
Right.
find out what it is that makes you happy. And there's always a level to do it on. When I couldn't afford facials, and I was just thinking about that actually getting ready for this podcast, this taping, because I was thinking about I'm very proud of all of the natural things that I learned how to do when I didn't have money
Mhm.
to go and get facials. That some things that I still do, some of the
Mhm.
products, and I'm like, I probably should put that out there because
You
sometimes
guys should see Michelle's skin, by the way. If you're not looking, she glows. She is glowing. I'm like, whatever she's doing, I need to do.
water, lots of
I
water.
got my water right here.
Yeah, lots of water. But, some of those things would be helpful because I remember when I was going through it and I just thought that it was the end of the world that I couldn't afford facials. But
Right,
then I started reading, what can I do at home? What are the things
right.
that I can make out of my own kitchen? And
Yeah,
those are some of the things that I still do now, even though
still
I can
do.
afford facials now. So
Right,
it's like,
right.
there's always something that you can do to replace like the Cadillac brand of what you like on your level as you're trying to get there and you're trying to
Yes.
build that stability.
Yeah. I think that's a huge misconception that we often have that when you have a lot of money, then you just buying all the things. And I
Mhm.
always tell my son who's 11, who's very, very money motivated. I always tell him, look, rich people are rich because they don't spend their money, right? Like,
Yeah.
I worked in the service industry for 10 years of my life as a bartender. And I worked and lived in San Francisco where there's a lot of money.
Right.
And there were certainly some very generous tippers. But I will tell you that the people who really were the most successful, who really did have the most money, they were generous tippers, but they were not over tipping. They were not
Right.
throwing $100 bills at us,
Right.
because they're like, I have better things to do with my money,
Right.
right? Than throwing it at this random bartender,
Right.
but people a lot of times, especially if you haven't come from money, like me, and as a bartender, we would get cash every night, right? I worked in these bars, I get hundreds of dollars, and I would go and spend it immediately, right?
Mhm.
Immediately, because I wasn't used to having money. And having money is a whole different feeling, right? We talk about this all the time in the Fempire that those of us who have struggled with food and weight, we've all lost weight a million times and then we just gain it back and then some. And
Right.
I've talked a lot about how we don't know what it's like to be someone who does not struggle with,
Right.
and I think it's the same with money. Like we have that
Yep.
identity that I struggle with money, that I was raised without money, that money was always a problem, always an issue.
Mhm.
And for me, it's my thought is always like, well, I don't come from money. I don't come from people with money, which is ironic because now my family, as people have worked in careers and college educations, people do have money in my family now, but I still have this association with that little girl who was 4, whose family did not have money and money was a problem, you know?
Right. I can definitely relate to I worked in the bar industry too in college.
Yeah.
And I remember some of my lowest moments when I was in that constant cycle of debt, of being so mad at myself that, I made thousands of dollars. Like I remember being, 21 years old, and like, I want to say back then it was like $2,500 a week was a bad week for me. And I'm thinking, what on earth was I doing? Well, first of all, that much money and what I wouldn't give to have it now.
Right now.
When I was facing all of that debt, going through my credit report, opening up all that mail, and I'm looking at credit card statements, and I'm like, restaurant, and spending, like $100, $200 a night on this frivolous lifestyle where I'm like, I would give anything to have that money.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I spent it all. I'll just go to work tomorrow.
That's right. That's fascinating. It is so fascinating. So how do you work with people? So I'm imagining people are listening to you right now and they're like, I need some more Michelle Campbell in my life. I know I do. How do you work with people? How can people learn more from you?
So right now on the #Stability website, so first, my nonprofit #Stability, I started just on my own as a concept idea in 2017. And this was at the end of me going through it, but I was still going through it. I was facing other eviction that didn't happen. Otherwise I would have had 6. And it was before that 4th repossession. But I was like, you know what? I want to give back on some level right now, because there were these things happening in my life where I noticed that there were no resources for what I call the forgotten demographic. And I constantly get asked, what do you think is the most impoverished community and people that need help? And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's the underprivileged, it's on and on and on. I think it's the working class, because there's nothing out there for us. And so I was experiencing, denied on everything, healthcare benefits, housing assistance, food assistance, all of this. And so I wanted to, in my own way, on my own level back then, even though I didn't have it all together, I wanted to help. And so I was doing these random acts of kindness. I would find people, I would show up like this, just angel, people, perfect strangers. And I said, one day, when I'm stable, I'm going to do this on a larger level. I had no idea that I was actually going to have this big epiphany, that I was going to be able to turn it into a story, that I was going to write a book, it was going to get published. And I was like, okay, so this is now the platform for me to do what I said that I was always going to do. So founded #Stability. And I have a board now where all of Michelle's ideas have like now been put to the side, because we have to do things a certain way because we're a legitimate organization. Like, no, we're building a housing shelter right now. Wait a minute, we got to have zoning permits. But right now, all of our resources are free. And what we have available are videos where you can learn on your time at your own speed, just some of the basics of becoming financially literate. Eventually, there's going to be in-person events, seminars, webinars, and there will be grants, and that's other ways that you can work within the organization. I also have a blog on my personal website that talks about present day transparency, where I am going to eventually have like a just Q&A of my subscribers, because I don't know how I got so many subscribers. I was just talking like almost like journaling online. But I love it because I'm talking about things that a lot of people won't admit about themselves, especially in real time. So I'm not somebody that is untouchable. You will be able to reach me. You can reach me either through the blog, you can reach me through the nonprofit, and my financial services company, TaxShell. I allow, unless I get overwhelmed, free consultations. So you have 30 minutes to tell me about your financial situation, whether it is tax related, accounting related, just to talk. But my specialty is in tax. I'm credentialed with the IRS. And so I am the person that goes to court for you if you've gotten a seizure or levy letter and they're about to lock down your checking account in your house because you have not paid taxes or you have not filed taxes. Like, I'm not afraid of the IRS. It's like, bring it on. So there are several ways to connect to me to get whatever information that you would like to get from me.
And I will be sure, I have all of your links, Michelle. I will be sure that they are included in the show notes so that people can easily connect with you. I'm like, ooh, I'm about to connect with you. I want a free consultation. And actually, I'm just thinking about, I was just in a mastermind yesterday with some really amazing powerhouse women, but I'm thinking about what one woman shared about her taxes and what she needs. And I'm like, I need to connect her to Michelle. So thank you for that. This has been such an empowering conversation. And I really just want to thank you for the work that you do. I really want to thank you for your transparency. I can't wait to read your blog. What is anything that you want to leave people with today? If there was one thing that you really hope, you said at the beginning, you really hope, and I loved what you said at the beginning about how wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. And it was weird because I had like this deja vu moment where I was like, wait a minute, did I dream that last night? Because I was like, wait, somebody just said this to me. It really landed. So thank you for reinforcing that message. But anything else that you just want to add before we sign off?
Sure. Just you are not alone. No matter how alone you feel, you're not alone. Probably some of the closest people to you, coworkers, family members, they're going through the same thing. It's just that nobody is talking about it. So I know that it's easier said than done. Just let go of that guilt, that shame, that embarrassment, because you don't even own those emotions. If you do, that means that you agree with it. And we're not all supposed to know everything. Life is growing in wisdom and constant education and feedback and insight. No one's got it all figured out, and you never will. So you're just not alone where you are, and try to, no matter what it is, connect with yourself first. That will get you through anything. We talked about weight and we talked about relationships. We talked about all of those things. So just remember that you're not alone. And if you don't feel like there's anybody that's going to understand what you're going through, try me. I'm available.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that is really something. And I want to reinforce that you said the steps that you shared with us today, Michelle, were start with yourself, which is what you just said. Face it. You got to take a look at what's going on, and then get your credit report, and then your budget. Sorry, it was 4 steps actually. And then you got to set up that budget, the 50, 30, 20.
So after you face it, add in there to figure out your relationship.
Oh, that's right.
Money.
Yep.
Because after you face it, after you're looking at, all this debt, I made a whole spreadsheet. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I pay this? Then it was, how did it even get this bad? Why was I spending? What were these purchases? What was the emotion behind these purchases? And that's how I was able to find my relationship with money. And then, yes, ordered my credit report, did a budget. After the budget, then I was able to organize money, call and make payment arrangements, do what you got to do to work it out. And then.
Okay. So nobody has to go on a 21-day no food fast.
No. I mean, I still fast. I started that, 6 or 7 years ago. I still fast several times a year. I actually just came off of the fast the previous week, and I did a whole long one the month of August, because August was hard for me. But I still fast because it gives me just that pause,
clarity,
and the insight to, chaos around. We go all the time. I'm a super busy person, have my hands in tons of different things. But sometimes when I'm just feeling like, okay, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this the right path to take? Is this the right direction? I feel a little confused. I know it's time to fast because it almost brings me back to my center.
Interesting. I love that. I think that you and I could talk for hours. I'm like, I think this might be my longest interview ever, but definitely one of the best interviews I've ever had the pleasure of doing on the Life You Crave podcast. So thank you so much, Michelle, for doing the work that you do. I thank you for really focusing on the working class, because that is, I 100% agree with you that there are resources for those of us who have a lot, and there are resources for those of us who have very little. And then everybody who's stuck in the in-between is kind of on their own. So I really, really appreciate that you are doing that work. I know I'm going to be in touch with you, and I will be sure to have all of your contact information in the show notes once again, so that everybody can find you. So thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.